Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the new Retail Perch. This is the new avatar of Retail Perch where we're focusing on specific topics. And it's me and Gary for right now, but we're going to have other actors and characters on the show here, Gary, pretty soon. But really talking about retail, maybe doing a deep dive into subjects more than just interviews, right? And today is super exciting because we are in. It almost feels like I'm in a sequel release mode because Gary's been doing these. What do I say? Kind of like the evolution of retail, so to say, over the years. And interestingly enough, for those who are interested in history, the first time I met and discovered Gary was, I think, when he wrote Retail 2.0. I want to say many, many
It
moons
was
ago.
Retail 3.0 was the
Was
first
it
one.
3.0? It
Yeah.
was like a long time ago. I
Yep.
don't even want to say how long ago, Gary, should we? But we'll leave it there, right? It was a long time ago. Um, so Gary started writing, now we're in 5.0, but 1.0 was about scale and national brands. 2.0 was retail power and logistics. 3.0 was about institutional memory and loyalty. 4.0 was about digital cortex and connectivity. And 5.0, well, is coming out of Gary's personal experience and his own life experience that he's gone through in the past couple of years, is about bionic orchestration and integration. So I'm really curious, Gary. I mean, obviously, we've seen retail evolve over time, and I think we're in a very exciting phase. Last episode, we talked about AI and its various impacts, but what inspired this particular, uh, version 5.0 coming out?
So it's a good question. I've been thinking about Retail 5.0 for a while now, right? And if you look back over the arc of those different ages, Retail 1.0, 2.0, et cetera, and you look at the time span between those sort of major fundamental shifts in the industry, things are speeding up. From Retail 3.0 to 4.0. And now, I think we're really at the threshold of the next significant fundamental shift in retail. And much of it certainly being driven by technology, but specifically AI capabilities, right? That are just absolutely exploding. Most everyone's familiar with Moore's Law, the idea that computer processing power doubles every 18 to 24 months or something. AI is developing, I think one of the quotes I saw was almost 10 times faster than Moore's Law. And I don't think a lot of people fully grasp how fast it's moving and some of the significant impacts of that as it continues to develop. So that's what really got me thinking about Retail 5.0 is really this next fundamental shift in retail and how retail operates, I think is really the key here.
Hmm. I mean, that apart from the fact that you had a couple of hips replaced in a shoulder, right? But
That just added a little personal color to the story,
right,
right?
right. I guess you're really talking about how technology and AI augment and make retail move faster. Uh,
Well, and I think and I think we began to touch on this in the last episode. I think that's really what needs to happen here. That AI offers the ability to do things much faster, much more efficiently with far greater impact. And I think rather than thinking of it, retail executives thinking of it as, oh, I can implement this piece of AI technology and get rid of these people. I think the future really belongs to how can I integrate these things? How can I integrate human creativity, human leadership, and so on with machine processing so I can get the speed, I can get faster, more effective decision making, but I need to marry that up with the human capabilities.
right. So I see what you've done in this paper is kind of drawn an analogy between how a human operates in terms of there are different body parts and functions, so to say, right?
Yeah.
I think you call it the bionic enterprise anatomy, right?
It, yeah, and I think it's an analogy that really works pretty well. When you think about, again, what's happening today is retailers and wholesalers, really, CPGs, any business is implementing new AI capabilities, but it's still within the traditional silos and functional areas that they've always operated in. And, maybe they're getting some incremental gain, I hope they are, from doing that. But I think where the big leap comes in when you can begin to open up and make accessible all the data across the enterprise, right? The data that's held today in all these disparate systems. So, implementing what, I guess the latest term is a data fabric, right? That sits across all these silos and functional areas. And if you think of that data fabric as really almost the spine connecting, right, in the human body, giving the body structure, but also is the conduit for sending signals back and forth. And, in the analogy here is the retailer connects all their data, makes it available, the ability now to begin sending signals automatically across the enterprise, what were previously disparate systems. So for example, knowing that, gee, this shipment of strawberries is going to be 3 days late, they're scheduled to go on the front page of the ad this next week. As soon as that notification of that delay comes up, immediately notifying marketing that either delays or changes out that item in the upcoming promotion. So, this idea of intelligent signals coming across the enterprise.
And I guess
Um,
that's what you're calling the spine, kind of like it's kind of like what connects all these different pieces.
yes, yes. And then, on top of that, or sort of along with that, is this idea of reflex arcs. And, simple example, you grab a hot pan on the stove, you immediately let go of it, right? That signal is gone in real time, instantaneously. This is really hot, goes up to your brain, comes back down, let go of it. There's no real thought process. You're not convening a committee. You're not going out and
Right.
asking five other people, gee, this is hot. Should I let go of it or not? Right? It just happens. And as more and more AI capabilities are deployed across the enterprise, the ability to develop this type of intelligent signals moving instantaneously really becomes a reality.
Right. So what you're really talking about is having some kind of a central nervous system that's connected to all the pieces of the enterprise.
Yes,
And there's intelligence. It's not just a data fabric, but there's intelligence embedded into it that knows what to do with the data flowing in.
that's right. That's right. I stop and think about, any size retailer today. The explosion in signals, right, that the typical retailer has available today. You know, every customer that's shopping, every product that's going out over that scanner in the front of the store or is being sold through the digital store is a signal. Every notification of a supply chain alerts or where product is or it's in this slot in the distribution center is a signal. What that shopper is doing while they're on the e-commerce site is a signal. What they're doing on their mobile app is a signal. And far too many signals for human beings to make real sense of them, let alone act on them. But in the world of AI, in the world of big data that we're living in today, and faster, cheaper processing power, all this becomes actionable if the company is architected for it.
Right. So, but what you're still saying is that it requires some embedding of human intelligence and experience in terms of what the action
Yes.
is to take on the signals. Because some
It,
signals may just be what I would call false positives or too small to warrant attention, right?
correct. Yes, no, that's right. And so, maybe one way to think about it is the human beings in the enterprise or in the business move from making decisions to designing decision systems, right? Creating the guardrails around automated pricing optimization systems or automated inventory reorder systems and so on. So, instead of the human being making that decision what to do with that price or order this many cases, it's designing the guardrails and the governance around it so the machine can execute those decisions much, much faster, much, much more efficiently, and often more accurately than a human can.
Got it. Got it. So you talk about this thing called the cortex, right? What is that what you're referring to here when you mean the intelligence?
Yeah, yes. So in the paper, think of the cortex really as the brain, right? And you look at a company like Birdseye is a great example here. Uh, you know, the cortex of the brain having an understanding of the outside environment. And by the outside environment, I mean, in the world of retail, what are customers doing?
Hmm.
How many are shopping? What are they buying? How often are they shopping? Where are they going in the store? How are they responding to promotions, to this targeted ad, et cetera, et cetera. Um, because that's what drives the business.
Right. 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 No, I think it makes total sense. And I think, like you said, some of the challenges in most of these things is unifying the signals and the data, and I guess ultimately the tools to take action on that, right? It's
Yes.
one thing to have the signals and the data, but if you don't have the necessary tools to actually act on that data, there's very little you can actually wind up doing. It's like having a brain, a really smart brain on a shelf with no arms and legs.
Yes. No, that's right.
It's the Retail Perch, presented by Birdseye, where grocery meets actionable intelligence.
That's right. So, if you think of, go back to sort of the analogy here, of a human body, you've got the spine that's helping connect all the data across the enterprise. You've got digital engagement tools that provide signals, right, coming in. This shopper is looking at this while they're on the e-commerce site, or they're doing that on the mobile app, et cetera. You've got a capability like a bird's eye that is sensing sort of the outside environment. What are shoppers doing? What are customers doing? Where are they going? How often are they going there, et cetera? And then synthesizing all this and enabling these different tools to do what they can do, leveraging AI, right? Which is process massive amounts of data incredibly fast, make decisions, and take action. And human beings now need to develop the guardrails around those actions.
Right, right. Now, obviously, I mean, theoretically, this makes a lot of sense, right? And I think where people might be even nodding, listening to this, yes, that makes total sense. But and then they're going back to their workplaces and enterprises, like how do you make something like this even happen? Like, where do I start, right? How should one think about
So,
implementing this model?
so in my mind, and obviously there's no simple answer here, right? But in my mind, it's really the first step is that data fabric. It's creating that spine. It's getting all the data that's held in disparate systems today connected so it can be seen across the enterprise. And simply with that, then being able to feed, let's say, better data, better intelligence into the existing solutions. So if I've got a greater view to supply chain activity, I can feed better information to the product assortment engine or the pricing optimization engine, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but then over time, it's replacing more of those legacy solutions with agents that can really begin to automate a number of these different processes, like product assortment, right? And let an agent make those decisions based on the intelligence, based on the signals it's getting from across the enterprise. So it's then, the second phase, if you will, is putting in place a growing number of agents to tackle specific functions in the enterprise. Then the third phase is really the orchestration piece of this, hence the title, Bionic Orchestration, right? It's having orchestrator agents that are orchestrating the activities, the decisions of all those tasks specific agents across the enterprise here. And I think that the key to this and the real shift in thinking is, instead of people today or agents tomorrow optimizing decisions, optimizing activity in a specific function or vertical area, like pricing optimization, it's thinking more broadly and optimizing the whole system. It's optimizing the whole enterprise because now you can begin to think that way.
Right. And I guess that requires a change in kind of how retailers think about becoming profitable, right? It's not just a siloed P&L is no longer a siloed functionality. You have to look at how it kind of rolls up to the overall custom metrics that you are looking at as a successful business, right?
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think the other important thing for retailers to understand here is this isn't just, a thesis or a theory, or gee, it's an interesting take on how some of these technology trends are converging. I mean, this is happening, right? Amazon's well down this road. Walmart's going down this path. Some of the other big players are also going down this path. And I think what should be concerning to other retailers is, as the leaders or the companies out in front of this begin deploying more and more of this capability, they're making decisions faster, they're making more effective decisions, they're thinking system wide, they're fine tuning and optimizing the whole enterprise. They're going to be improving their financial performance far faster, far more frequently than a human speed operator.
Right, right. So I know, I don't want to give away the entire paper. We want people to download it and read it, right? Of course. But Gary talks about agentic commerce and how that's going to change how retail really happens. We talk about some transformation pillars and the implementation blueprint, which I think is a must read if you're really looking to see how to actually, what are the phases through which you can go about and implementing this and making it happen. And but let's kind of get to the end here, Gary, and talk about what's going to go away, what's dying, right? And then what are things that are what you call evolutionary dead ends that people
Yep.
are going to see, and that they probably want to shed sooner than later, right?
Oh, yeah. So absolutely. I think some of those dead ends are continuing to think in terms of just point solutions instead of broader, more system-wide capabilities. Thinking about changing or eliminating historical practices like RFPs that tend to chew up a lot of time, a lot of resources, and are often written by legacy solution providers. So the net effect of that is that RFP process simply is reinforcing the legacy approach, the siloed approach that has created some of the challenges today. Um, I think the big one is the need for executives to really change in how they think about the business. In my mind, what this is really about is a change in the operating model, right? It's how decisions are made, where they are made, and understanding where technology is taking us really fast, where AI in particular is taking us, and to be able to realize the benefits of those capabilities.
Yeah, it seems like, I think if retailers are going out to find vendors that are best suited to their needs, you got to be thinking about outcome focused, right? As opposed to, hey, here's what I want to achieve with my business. Here's my key
Yes.
objectives. How does your solution, how does your platform help me do that?
Yep.
Explain that to me, as opposed to here's the capabilities and the feature and function I need. Because I think the feature function piece is what's evolving so fast, right? And how you get that done changes so fast. You really want to be outcome focused, because ultimately that's what grows your business, is the
So,
outcomes that the technology can achieve.
so I absolutely agree with you. I think as we both see, far too many retailers are still focused on features and functions, right? I need this capability, I need that capability. I saw this written about last week in some trade publication. I got to have that. That's going to fix my business. Um, and again, I think even with outcomes, I think that thinking of outcomes needs to be either driven by or certainly blended together with what technology capability is making possible today, right? Because the outcome I would have thought of last month is far different than the outcome I'm thinking of today or what may be possible next month.
Right. Right. Well, I'm gonna leave the rest for the listeners to read here, because we don't want to give it all, but it's a terrific read. I would highly. When's this coming out, Gary?
On March 17th, week
All
from
right.
today.
So I guess by the time this podcast
So
hits people's ears,
it will be
it,
there.
it'll be there. So go look for Retail 5.0 by Gary Hawkins. It should be available out there. Is it also going to be on your website, Gary?
Yes, it'll be on certainly be on LinkedIn. It'll be on garyhawkins.info. So I'm sure you'll see it a number of places.
Terrific, terrific. Well, I can't wait to read it. Well, the truth is, I actually got to read it, so it is terrific. It's a great read. Gary's a terrific writer, and I love his style, and the future looking aspect of this is just awesome. I think we've got a few exciting years of retail coming up. Gary, thank you so much. Anything else to close out the thoughts here,
All
Gary?
right, no, enjoyed talking with you about it. So we'll look forward to reconvening here soon on the next episode of the Retail Perch.
Awesome. Well, talk to you guys soon, and hope you guys enjoy this new format. We're certainly stoked about it. I think it allows us to dive deep into specific topics and really kind of unpack a lot of stuff. But if there's comments, suggestions, more than welcome. I also want to thank the Retail Perch team, Courtney Adams and Mika Raman, who make this possible every week or every other week. But talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to The Retail Perch. Follow us on LinkedIn at The Retail Perch for new episodes and updates. For more resources, visit birdseye.com. Catch you next time.